It's 1993. The Maastricht Treaty comes into force, founding the European Union. And you thought Harry Potter's a thick book, right? The World Trade Center is struck by a terrorist attack for the first time.
At 12:18 p.m., World Trade Center Tower number 1 became a tower of smoke.
Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk received the Nobel Peace Prize.
I am not a saint unless you think of a saint as a sinner who keeps on trying.
And the first ever men's World Stone Skimming Championship takes place and culminates in 3 joint winners: David Rice-Jones, Matthew Burnham and Jonathan Ford. The world needs more proper men like these, following their peaceful businesses. But what happened in the automotive industry, and which cars of that year were the perfect skimming stones and will bounce on to become the future classics? Let's go right back and find out. Welcome to Car Crush. The automotive industry is still in the grips of recession, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel. The prospects for recovery, and especially for growth in developing and newly industrialized countries, provide a bit of hope. In Western Europe, however, the situation is still very severe, with high unemployment and falling incomes. Domestic orders for cars declined significantly, and new registrations were down 19%. The situation in North America is slightly better, and the US are clearly leaving the mess of the recession years behind them. Sales of passenger cars rose to over 8.5 million, mostly due to the popular light truck sector. In Asia, we see the rise of new automotive powers. South Korea was able to increase vehicle exports by 40%. Production in India rose by 16%, and in China by more than 20%. Especially China is catching more and more attention as a future superhero. During the previous 10 years, sales of cars have increased by 30 times. A positive outcome of this almost 4-year recession was that it created a more competitive environment for car companies, particularly with regard to emissions and fuel consumptions, better vehicle safety and greater focus on the individual demands of the customer. There's a growing popularity of alternative vehicle concepts. Coming from a world dominated by sedans, we now see the rise of estates, minivans, convertibles and the first SUVs. At the Geneva Motor Show, BMW displays another version of its E1 electric car. The Plymouth Prowler shocks the crowds with an extremely radical concept and design. And at the IAA in Frankfurt, Mercedes presents the Vision A93, an early outlook at the 1997 A-Class and a blueprint for the new generation of compact cars and minivans. It's exciting times in the automotive industry, creative, innovative, explorative, optimistic. And as a sharp contrast to the atmosphere of that era, the car of the year is the Nissan Micra.
Our system is rigged. You know it, they know it, I know it, and pretty much the whole world knows it.
In that specific context, I agree with that man. But now, let's have a closer look at some of the most exciting introductions of the year to track down the future classics. Let's start our journey in Italy and talk about a beautiful sports coupe from Alfa Romeo, the GTV. It took Alfa 8 years after the production of the first generation GTV ended to delight car enthusiasts with a successor. While the 1974 GTV was designed by Giugiaro, this one came from Pininfarina. It was presented in March at the Geneva Motor Show and was an instant eye-catcher. The GTV has become an icon of Italian car design, with the classic Alfa Romeo grille surrounded by 4 round headlights, the extremely wedge-shaped side profile emphasized by this famous rising crease, and the single-piece rear lamp ribbon. Depending on the production year, the quality varies between okay and horrible. So, if you're looking for a car that offers you Italian emotions and sensational looks, go for the GTV. You may need some effort and money to prevent it from dying, but apart from that, it's a fantastic car and a future classic. And now, the Saab 900. For those of you working in the automotive industry, watch closely, because here's a textbook example of how to destroy brands. It's very easy and can happen very fast. And most importantly, you can never make it undone. This is the first generation 900 from 1978. It was a classless style icon, cleverly engineered, had the quality of a Mercedes, and was sold more than 900,000 times. It was a phenomenon. But some managers thought it was too expensive and had the genius idea to take a cheap Opel Vectra, put it in a Saab costume and sell it to clueless customers. As a result, with a little help from GM, the new generation 900 was created. It was produced until 1998, and 13 years later, Saab was dead. That's a long and very sad story made short. All these mind-blowing stunts didn't help. This Saab 900 is not a future classic. This 900 is a shame. Or to let the Swedish speak for themselves.
How dare you!
Next, the Audi A8. After the half-hearted Audi V8, this was the brand's true debut in the luxury market. Until this day, they are struggling to keep up with Mercedes and BMW in this segment. The A8 was presented as a 99% production-ready show car in Frankfurt, called the Audi Space Frame Concept, with an eye-catching body in polished aluminium. Some may say it's just an Audi A4 scaled to 110%, but I think that doesn't do justice to the A8's excellent design. The surfaces are clean and timeless, the proportions are well balanced, it looks bold and elegant and has powerful stance. It may not have the presence and status of its rivals from the mid-90s, but it still looks very modern to me. I think it might even be the strongest generation A8 in relation to its era. It was a huge milestone for Audi and very much a technologically advanced vehicle. My verdict, it will continue to grow and go down in history as a future classic. And now, Fast and Furious from Japan, the Toyota Supra. Presented as the fourth generation Supra at the 1993 Chicago Motor Show, this was a serious high-performance car and quickly became sort of a pop culture icon. It had quite a few appearances in Hollywood movies and a wide range of motorsport successes. It is now considered to be a collector's car, and prices for mint condition models go up to 100,000 euros. So there's no reason in questioning whether this is a future classic. It already has its safe place in automotive history. But I'll be honest with you, I don't understand it, I don't like it, it doesn't appeal to me, it's probably not my style, and that's okay for both of us. For the next car, it's just the other way around. The Mercedes-Benz C-Class W202. I have a very special relationship to this car. It was the first one I've ever owned. I bought the 202 estate version as a student, somewhere north of 100,000 miles, 10 years old, no air conditioning, manual window lifters, smallest available engine. And it was literally the best thing I've ever driven, and the car I've owned for the longest period of time. I went through half of Europe with it, packing 5, 6 and 7 people on board, and it was the most reliable and rewarding place to be in. It was a phenomenal car, it felt like a proper Mercedes, and I should have never sold it. I've put the VIN number down in the description. Please write me a message if you know where my car is. But to come back to this W202 sedan, and the only relevant question, is it a future classic in the sense that demand and prices may be rising one day? And it's hard to admit for me, but I don't think so. In my opinion, after the glorious 190, which of course is a classic, this C-Class was maybe a bit too soft, too much retired people's car. I think especially as a sedan and especially from the rear view, it lacks some sharpness and freshness that the predecessor had. I think the 190, despite being more than a decade older, is aging better. Rust was certainly another issue which didn't help the W202's reputation. The upside is, you can take the money other people spend for a bike and go out and buy one. Or two. And I absolutely encourage you to do just that right after the end of this video. And now, the Opel Tigra. This fresh and daring little coupe based on the second generation Corsa was quite a success for Opel. It was sold more than 250,000 times and even won the Car Design Award Turin in 1995. If you like it, you can buy one for less than 1,000 euros. But don't forget, it's just an Opel Corsa in disguise. So basically, your grandpa in a sweatsuit. I don't think this Tigra will ever be a future classic. But here's another one, the Porsche 993. Okay, I think we can make this one quite quickly because literally every human being agrees. The 993 Porsche is of course a future classic, and it already was at the moment it was revealed in Frankfurt at the Motor Show. It's so desirable and iconic and perfect in every aspect. There's this word about the 993 being the last true 911, but I don't buy into that nostalgic concept. So much progress has been made after the 993, both in terms of technology and design, and it would have been a shame if history had ended with the 993. But this car has its eternal place in the Automotive Hall of Fame, and you just have to kneel down to it. The only open question for me is this: is it even thinkable that the 992 is better than the 993? To me, the 993 clearly beats all the previous generation's 911, and it clearly beats the 996, the 991 and the 997 that followed. But the 992? I'm not sure. And we might have to wait some 50 years to be able to tell. In the meantime, let's talk about the Subaru Sumo, or Libero as it was called in Europe. And you may wonder, what? But stay with me for a second and please have a look. I think you just have to love this car. It's an excellent example of using space efficiently like only the Japanese were able to do it. They just take 6 people, put them as close together as possible and wrap a box around them as tiny as possible. This thing is shorter than a Volkswagen Up. A Smart 4.2 is 25 centimeters wider. But the Sumo offers 6 seats in 3 rows that you can fold flat to sleep on them, sliding doors, 4-wheel drive if you need it, a cartoon-like styling. This car is so adorable and brilliantly engineered, and quite expensive. If you don't want to buy a wreck, you need to spend 10,000 euros. You can easily get a 6-cylinder BMW convertible for that money. But don't expect to accommodate your dog in there appropriately. This little giant is a future classic, and I would prefer driving around in this shoebox over the Toyota Supra. And now, stone me. And that was about it for the year 1993. Next week we're going to talk about Edvard Munch, a Porsche estate car, and chess. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.